Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Missoula Dems Show. I'm Andy, chair of Missoula County Democrats.
I'm Lauren Wilson. I'm the vice chair of the Missoula County Democrats.
And we are joined today by our very special guest, Russell Cleveland, who has a new role with the Montana Plan as the executive director of partnerships, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, nailed it.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
All right. We'll get right into the questions. So you are here representing the Montana Plan. What is the Montana Plan?
Yeah, so the Montana Plan is ultimately there's kind of two parts of it. People know it by where it started, which was Transparent Election Initiative, which was kind of the idea of reforming campaign finance. And now in Montana, we actually have ballot initiative I-194, which is the formal Montana Plan in action. But ultimately, the Montana Plan is a workaround to reverse Citizens United through a different mechanism this time to ban corporations and dark money in our political systems and election finance. So,
very good.
Perfect. So let's take a little bit of a step back and say money in politics has been an issue for a very long time. So we know that the Citizens United decision made this problem a lot worse. Can you tell us kind of how that played out?
Yeah, so a lot of people aren't really sure the history of Citizens United. It started actually in 2008. A group called Citizens United was trying to do a documentary film actually about Hillary Clinton. It was initially struck down. They couldn't have those independent expenditures because it was considered a corporate expense. They challenged it. The Supreme Court ruled in their favor, which opened the floodgates to what is now all of us know as super PACs that are allowed to spend anonymous money through independent expenditures in our campaign finance. And what we've seen since that is over $4 billion spent from super PACs just in that roughly 15 years since that decision was made, and about 1.9 billion of that is corporate money that's being spent or pushed through our political systems to try and influence elections in certain directions. So
crazy.
Yeah.
So because corporations are viewed as people, they're allowed, because of the Citizens United decision, to donate money, unlimited amounts of money, compared to an individual person who is capped.
Yeah, correct. So if you think about it, we all know we have caps as individuals. What the Supreme Court ruling really said was corporations, or what we call artificial persons, are groups of individuals. And so the ruling was made based off of the fact that they said groups of individuals cannot have their speech limited through the First Amendment, just as individuals cannot have their speech limited. And so really they've leaned heavily on this First Amendment right, and what the Montana Plan does is say, yeah, that's great, we're not even approaching it through that realm. What we're saying is through the 10th Amendment, states also get to determine what a corporation's permissions are through their charter as a business, and all we're doing is removing that power to participate in political spending. So if you don't have the power through your corporate charter, there is no right being infringed upon. And so it changes the way that we're actually looking at this is, if you don't have an arm, it's not a matter of whether you have the ability to flex that muscle or not. That arm's just not there. So it redefines what corporations are, and then by that we're able to determine what they're able to do. So a little bit different approach.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So I-194 is a ballot initiative here in Montana. Can you explain what that means and the steps needed to be taken in order for it to ultimately be successful?
Yeah, there's two different routes you can go when doing any type of citizens initiative. And the first is a ballot initiative like we see with I-194. You go out, you submit to have a law passed through a citizen initiative. You have to gather a certain amount of signatures to get that. Once those signatures are certified, then that initiative will appear on the next general election ballot. So that's the first route. The second one is a constitutional initiative, like we've seen several times, which actually makes a change to our state constitution. The big difference is our state legislators cannot change a constitutional initiative. They can change a ballot initiative just because it's the same thing as our legislature passing a law. This right now is a ballot initiative. Both were submitted. The constitutional initiative got held up by the Attorney General, was challenged. We made the adjustments It's ready to go out for signature as well. But because we had such a short window this election cycle, we've kicked the can on the constitutional initiative to next year. So we'll pass the ballot initiative and save the constitutional initiative towards next election. But right now we are approved for signature, or approved for ballot on this initiative to go on the November ballot. So you'll see I-194 on the November 3rd election.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So have other states tried anything like this, or is this something that we're hoping that other states might replicate if it's successful?
Yeah, great question. So this concept is a novel concept that's never been tried before through this changing of kind of corporate permissions through the 10th Amendment. The Citizens United ruling has been challenged dozens and dozens of times over the last 15 years and has failed or fallen short almost every single time because of that First Amendment right. This, because it's taking a different course, is new. No one else has tried it before. Montana Plan, Jeff Mangan and his team created the Transparent Election Initiative, which is what created this whole concept. That is one group. The Montana Plan is a separate PAC that's working on I-194. And TEI, the Transparent Election Initiative, is more of an education group, which helped get the most recent law passed in Hawaii using the same framework that the Montana Plan is using here in Montana. So Hawaii actually beat us to the punch by running it through their legislation, but really it was using the exact same framework that I-194 is based on. There's other states, Pennsylvania, I believe Colorado, Oregon, Washington, who are looking at this same concept. But I think everyone's waiting to see what happens in Hawaii. The law that was passed there has already been sued right after it was passed. And so that's expected. We expected an injunction. We expected this to be challenged in court. We expect it to go to the Supreme Court. And really it will be pins and needles waiting to see what the Supreme Court decides, whether they're going to say this is still a First Amendment infringement or whether they're going to recognize that states actually should maintain the ability to control what corporations can and cannot do at the state level.
Okay. The Montana Plan has already beat several lawsuits, and organizations like the Montana Republican Party and the Chamber of Commerce have come out against it. Why do you think they're fighting it so hard? And what's your assessment of their argument that the plan is anti-business?
Yeah, it's so funny they say that because it is not anti-business, and here's why. The reason we're seeing so many of these organizations like Montana Chamber, Montana GOP take a position against it is because their biggest funders are these big corporations who have spent millions and millions of dollars in Montana's elections over the last 15 years. You don't have to look very far to see where the money is coming from. So when they say follow the money, it literally is that Northwest Energy, Coal Mining Association, some of these other big organizations that spend a lot of money, not just on lobbying, which this doesn't touch at all, but also on the things we love most, which is thousands of mailers coming into your mailbox every year, and TV commercials and radio commercials. And so what this does would prohibit that from happening. Those organizations could still advocate on behalf of whatever initiative or candidate they would want, but it has to be from individuals, not from corporate line item on their budget. So you wouldn't see a big corporation passing money into a super PAC or into a PAC, which then gets passed to another PAC and another PAC, something most people know as money laundering. In politics, it's just known as the way we do business. Yeah. Instead, it would say, great, this PAC is now representing this thing, and here's their 1,000 donors. You would know exactly who's spending money on what issue, and so it's all about transparency. The GOP backed the Montana Chamber because the same exact corporations that are the Montana Chamber's highest donors, which their top tier requires a donation of at least $35,000 per corporation to the Montana Chamber.
Wow.
No problem, they'll write a check. Those are also the same donors that are funding many of the Republican Party's issues and candidates in this state. So it's no surprise that those are hand in hand. The key thing for people to remember is that the Montana Chamber is not your local chamber. Those are two totally different organizations. So if you have a Missoula City Chamber or Whitefish Chamber or Ravalli County Chamber, whatever that might be, those are managed locally. And our goal is to get in front of them and show that this is really good for small business. What it does is levels the playing field. So now instead of it being a pay-to-play game where you're keeping up with the Joneses, where I'm this big corporation, I'll just outspend you as a local business because I know I can. Neither one of us can spend now, and so both of us have an equal voice with our representatives to say, hey, this is gonna hurt my business, and it's really good for this business. Now it's like, you gotta weigh these equally, not based off of who can spend the most money.
So if this passes and everyone's on equal footing, like you're saying, and we're not doing a bunch of money laundering, which would be great, like what do you see like concretely changing in Montana, and like would that also translate to national politics as well, do you think?
Yeah, it will translate, because what most people are afraid of, and some of the pushback we've heard is, well, a lot of these corporations are from outside of the state of Montana. And what people need to realize is that in Montana, like in most states, even if you're what we call a foreign entity, which doesn't mean a corporation from China, it just literally means outside of the state of Montana, you have to register as a foreign corporation just like you would if you were a domestic corporation founded in Montana. That makes those laws applicable to you just like if you were founded here in Montana, no matter whether you're in Delaware or Florida or anywhere else. So as far as how it impacts the money being spent in Montana, it doesn't matter where the company's from or where the PAC or super PAC is from, they'll be prohibited from doing that spending in Montana elections. Will there still be an overwhelming amount of money being spent in politics? Yes, that's not going to go away. But what it does create is an avenue of transparency for us to know exactly who is doing the spending, what's the origination source of that money, and by way of that curtain being pulled back, people are going to be like, I don't know if I want my name attached to this. And so some of these big spenders are going to pull back their funding because they don't want to be seen as spending money on a certain issue that might be harmful to their reputation. So we will see a reduction in this type of spending. The other thing that's important to note is that elections like we just saw in this primary in Montana on both sides, where you had organizations like Americans for Prosperity spending tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to push out candidates, even within the Republican Party with another Republican candidate. Those organizations won't be able to do that. They're using something called dark money, which basically is an anonymous donor source pumping in money to run lots of these ads. They wouldn't be able to participate in those advertisements anymore, spend that money, without it being from individual donors documented where that's from. So they'd have to create a separate PAC that only raises money from individual donors from that PAC to be able to participate in any type of mailing system in Montana, which will change the landscape big time. So,
Totally.
yeah.
Cool. In your new role as Executive Director of Partnerships, you are working to build the Montana Plan's Small Business Coalition. Can you talk about that and other work you're doing specific to your new role with the Montana Plan?
Yeah, so prior to jumping into this world of politics in Montana, I ran my own small business. My wife and I ran a childcare company and have always had kind of that entrepreneurial bug. Montana is one of the highest proportion of small businesses per capita in the nation in terms of we are ran by small businesses. So the whole goal of building this business coalition is this is really a nonpartisan initiative, and the goal is to show that this is good for Montana business owners, most of whom small businesses don't spend in politics already. They don't have a separate line item like these big corporations do that is for political spending. So by building this business coalition, it's saying, look, we're standing together regardless of party because we know that this is good for Montana and Montanans. So that's one coalition. Some of the other validators that we're working on are a veterans coalition. We had a big focus group in Helena a couple days ago, just bringing veterans to the table. Montana's veteran population is roughly 10% of our total residency, and it's bringing veterans to the table saying, look, we understand that you're a big part of the population here. You fought hard to protect and preserve our Constitution. This is a nation that's supposed to be by the people, for the people, not by the corporation, for the corporation. And so this is another way to make sure people's voices are heard and not bought. So that's a pretty important project we're working on as well.
Nice.
This all sounds really awesome. If there are people who are looking to get involved, how would they reach out and get involved with this whole process?
Yeah, so Montana Plan has, the cool thing is we got over 50,000 signatures in 11 weeks' time, and almost every ballot initiative is paid signature gatherers, and the Montana Plan signature gatherers were all volunteer. It is historical in Montana. We haven't had that type of volunteer effort in decades in this state. And so the volunteers are super proud of the work they did, but knowing that heading into this fall, we know that we're going to see a massive amount of money spent on opposition against this ballot initiative, and the only way to beat that is with more volunteerism, people on the ground, knocking doors, answering questions, doing events, helping us get the word out and educate, and really just defeat some of these rumors that are untrue. So the best way that you can help, donate, volunteer, read more is montanaplan.org. If you'd like to join the Small Business Coalition, we encourage you to do that. There's no partisan commitment, no financial commitment. That's just mainstreetmontana.org. You can add your business to the list, and we're growing every day with more businesses across the state that are jumping on board with that too. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good luck to you.
Thank you.
This is a huge undertaking, and really glad to have you be part of it. I know.
Yeah, it's fun. We're already having fun, and spent a lot of months in western Montana, so now I get to dip my toes in the east and meet a lot of the eastern Montana folks too. So.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, keep up the good work. Thanks for everything you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's our show today, folks. Thanks for joining us, and extra special thanks to Russell Cleveland and the Montana Plan, and we'll see you next time.